Our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proportion that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a proportion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that a nation might live. It is altogether fitting, proper that we should do this. But in larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it. Far above our poor power to add and detract, the world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is living for us rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished works which they who fought have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we increase divination to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of domination, that we herely highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. This nation under God shall not have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth.
We will now have Flanders Field by Johnny Wilson. Okay. Okay, we'll have the Flanders Field by Isabel. Who? Isabel Cardona.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, through poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Thank you, Isabel. We will now have a band selection by Mahar Band. Thank you. At this time, it's an honor and a pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, all the way from Quincy, Massachusetts, past National Commander John P. J. Coleman.
Thank you very much, Walter. Reverend clergy, members of the American Legion, ladies of the Auxiliary, sons of the American Legion, all my fellow veterans, my fellow Americans, and the residents of this wonderful town of Orange, Massachusetts. It's a great privilege for me to be here this morning. I travel quite a bit throughout the world each year. This weekend is no different. Friday night in Plymouth, Saturday in Cohasset, yesterday in Beverly, this morning at 8 o'clock in Hyde Park, and then the ride up Route 2 to the beautiful town of Orange. You should be commended for coming out on this day. So many forget what we're all about. So many are traveling to the malls for the sales. That's not Memorial Day. As I said, I've had some experiences that I wish you all could have joined me. I think of 25 years ago when I traveled to Honolulu, Hawaii, and many of you have. But Waikiki Beach is not Memorial Day. It's those that took the tender out to the USS Arizona, the ship that went down on December 7th, 1941. And as you stand on the deck of the Arizona, and you look at the small glass enclosure in front of you, you actually visually see the deck of the ship and the oil still coming from the bottom. And then you realize that 1,027 proud Americans are still entombed on that ship, never to make it out. That's what we're here for. That's why the residents of Orange, Massachusetts comes out today to honor those that have paid the supreme sacrifice, and to those men and women that are yet to return, and we hope very safely, very soon. 7 years ago, I was in France at a cemetery there to honor those that are laid in the ground in France. I happened to walk through the gravestones, and what a surprise for me as I stopped at one stone. The name was Murphy, Medal of Honor recipient from Weymouth, Massachusetts. Had a chance to stop and say a prayer for one of our own, far away in the country of France, that honors our veterans on this day. Another great experience was in 1990 when I was honored to lead a Veterans Day parade. That's not so important. We lead a lot of parades. But this parade was down Gorky Street in Moscow, when I was marching with the Waltham American Legion Band, Dottie Hill. 7 and 8 deep on either side, I thought I was on Commonwealth Avenue in Boston. People yelling, "Freedom, freedom, America," because they know that freedom is not free. We stopped, as most parades do. Little girl come running out from the crowd. Her father and 2 little boys running after her, and I said, "Leave her alone." She ran to our American flag, took that flag to her lips, and she kissed it. He said, "Commander, if that's the case, could you explain to my children about your wonderful country?" You know, people all over the world are people like you here in Orange, Massachusetts. Government fights the wars, not the people. They know what freedom wish they had. What a great experience. Young soldier directing traffic come up to me and gave me a salute. They buy all their own uniforms, and he took off his cap and he presented it to me, and I still have it at home. Because they were so honored to see the Americans in Moscow. And yet, what you have been listening to and watching for the past 2 weeks about the disgrace out of Washington and what's happening to our veterans that are going into the VA hospitals and cannot get in and waiting on surprise lists, with 40 of them dying in Phoenix, Arizona before they could even get to see a doctor. 27 hospitals have come forward in the last 2 weeks to explain those on the waiting list and the way they've hid the names of those that should be going in immediately. A friend of mine from Dedham, Massachusetts, who was declared with a bone marrow that he had cancer, leukemia. He was put on the treatment and given his treatment for leukemia. Still not well, goes back to the hospital, they do another bone marrow and they find out he had no leukemia at all. It was a mistake. But they've already wiped out his red cells, his white cells, and for 5 years he sat in agony with many, many problems until he died 3 months ago. You, the great Americans that are here, must know what's going on and remind your Congress and your president, who said, well, we'll investigate it. Investigate it, hell! We've investigated enough. 2010 this started. We have the information, we gave it to them, and that's why the American Legion, and the only one that has done so, has asked Secretary Sincheki, a proud 4-star general who did a great job in Vietnam, but Mr. Secretary, your time has gone. You must leave the job now and give it to someone that's going to bring care and dedication to those men and women that are yet to come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, as we honor our veterans here today, this Memorial Day. It's got to be done. Ladies and gentlemen, I know how you feel or you wouldn't be here. Continue to do the job, supporting those. As I look back, and I see your beautiful memorial here with the names of all your fellow veterans that served in all wars. What a tribute to your town. Continue. Because when we hear, we forget. And when we see, we remember. It's when we do, we understand. God bless you all.
Thank you, Commander Jake.
Sergeant, salute the dead! Color guard, 13, up! Present!